Now, I've got a little confession to make because I've sometimes corrected people when they've told me that there's no mainstream voices on the ABC. Now, sure, hundreds of people who talk regularly on ABC television, radio and digital, and most of them clearly identify as elites, shall we say. They talk about ordinary Australians. They also talk about the people of Western Sydney or regional Australia as if they're aliens. But there's always been one obviously mainstream voice, Macca. Macca on Sunday mornings, that is, right around the country, and until last year, actually around the world. Ian McNamara has hosted Australia All Over for almost 40 years, and he's as mainstream as you can get. I wouldn't be able to guess at his politics, but you know that every time you listen to him, he understands what mainstream Australians are focused on, what they'd be thinking about. And how could he not? Because he takes calls from them from all over the country all the time. People doing things you've never heard about or coming to you from places that you'd never heard about before either, which is why this exchange from him on radio last month was completely unexceptional.
If you're inviting 600,000 people into Australia, it's just a no-brainer that you're going to have problems with housing. I mean, why don't they say, let's cut back on the number of people coming in, let's fix up the problems we've got now and then we'll look at that. But that never seems to happen.
Now, that makes absolutely sense, doesn't it? To you and me, it's just absolutely common sense. It's not political. It is just common sense. Now, the month beforehand, Macca had told someone on his show that you don't call January the 26th Invasion Day, it's called Australia Day. Again, just common sense. But this, of course, is the ABC, and airing those kinds of views doesn't go down too well with some of its listeners. They prefer open borders, Invasion Day and climate catastrophism. Perhaps Macca should have blamed the housing crisis on the climate or the invasion. Anyway, there were some complaints and there were investigations. Can you believe it? The ABC investigated those comments, all the mistakes and problems and biases at the ABC, and that's what they investigated. Now, thankfully, they found that Macca didn't breach their guidelines. Thank God for that. But the very fact they saw fit to investigate these pathetic complaints shows just how off-beam the ABC has become. They probably can't wait for Macca to retire. Then maybe they'll have no mainstream voices at all. Let's follow up on media issues with Sophie Elsworth, the media writer with The Australian, joins us every Monday. Sophie, this is a ripping yarn from you guys in this morning's Australian. I mean, honestly, how could you possibly spend 1 minute investigating such common sense comments?
Well, Chris, I think Macca's speaking saying what he thinks in the minds of many Australians. But the ABC felt the need to investigate his comments about it's not Invasion Day, it's Australia Day, and the concern around migration, which I think a lot of people can resonate with, Chris. Look, I've listened to Macca. I grew up listening to him. He's been around pretty much as long as I have. He resonates with a lot of Australians, and Chris, his show has been in existence for about 4 decades, so it speaks for itself. But I think this is an example of where the ABC have got it right. People love his show. He's continuing to do well. And the comments on our story today, people were in full support of Macca.